Hi, Serena here. Thanks for joining me today on my YouTube channel. Now, over the years, I've tried some different palettes, and I've always wondered what were the best palettes to use. So if you're wondering too, let's test them out together today. I've been using watercolors for a while and using a lot of different palettes also. But I always wondered if I actually compared them, how they would perform. So if you're curious too, let's take a look and see right now what types of results we'll get. What I'll do is I've got some scrap paper here. I'm going to go ahead and test some of the paints on here and just see how the palettes perform as far as being able to judge the thickness of the paint, the quality of the paint, and so forth. So first of all, I'm going to start with this palette here, which I know all of you have. Don't lie. You've all tried one of these cheapo plastic palettes, and you know, honestly, there's nothing wrong with them. They're very thin. You can carry them anywhere. The thing I don't like, of course, they are plastic, so they're going to perform differently than some of the other materials we'll try here today. But it's also thin. You can kind of slip it in whatever, slip it in your bag and carry it with you. Once the paints are dry, it's not a problem. The downside to this, of course, is that there really isn't any cover that it comes with. They've never come up with one that fits it. So you're stuck with letting your paints dry and getting all manner of dirt in them. We're not going to work with this one today because, it's plastic. We know what it's going to be like, and we're going to put it aside. So I hope all of you eventually move on from these. If you're starting with these as a student, nothing wrong with them. They're economical and they really work well to mix your paints. You've got enough wells in them. I use this one a little bit for acrylics, you can see, so I've left, or actually that's gouache, so I've left a little bit to dry. But as far as it being salvageable now, there's a couple of hairs in there, some dust. I won't be able to salvage it. So let's put this one aside because we've all had enough experience with those types of palettes. Now, I have a couple of other palettes we're going to try today. I'll show you what my go-to palette has been for a long time. And this is one you can get in most stores, Jerry's or Blick's. They've got a variation of this type of palette. I like it because it's got the lid on it. You can close it up. You're not going to get the dust in there again. After you're finished, you can reuse your paints over and over again, which I do. Even when they get muddy, I find a use for these types of paints. If I'm painting portraits or something, I'll use it for someone's jeans or, some other thing, some wooded area, some trees and so forth. But I like this. As far as plastic goes, we know what plastic does. Plastic tends to puddle, and you can't really judge the thickness of the paint. But I like it because it's got a lot of wells in it. And then I did find one in Jackson's from the UK, which I really like. This is a travel palette. It's like a travel palette. It seals up nicely, and it is plastic. So we're going to try this first. We're going to start with this. I do have some paints already on here, so let's take a look and see. What I like to do is use my dropper. I have an eyedropper here. I like to use this. And I like to use the eyedropper because I can control how much water goes in the paint. Now, the downside of the watercolor, the plastic for watercolor, is that as you're using this and you mix it up, okay, you're mixing it up here, you've got it more saturated, you're dissolving the paint that's already on there. Now, I can't tell really how thick that is. It's a little hard to tell. I don't know whether it's a thick mixture or a thin mixture. It tends to bead up, and if I'm using a new well, you can see it a lot clearer how it's just beading up there. It doesn't spread out, doesn't give me an idea of how thick the paint is. Let me check it over here. I think it's kind of a medium thickness. It's true, it's kind of a medium. It's not really a thickness, but because it's translucent, it gives you an idea of how saturated the color is here, whereas you really can't see that here. It's very hard to see in the plastic. It pools together, and that's what's so bad about plastic. But I do love this as plastic goes. It's got so many wells, you can just mix as many colors as you need. It's more than enough. And then you've also got this other palette here where you can mix colors. It does have a gasket in it, which is nice, because that will keep your paints kind of moist. If you're using this for acrylics, it'll keep them at least overnight, keep them moist overnight. So I do like this kind of palette. It's a step up from this one, of course, but they are both plastic. So you've got that problem with the plastic where you can't see the saturation level. Now, let's compare with something like this, which is just a little travel palette that I have. And with this one, you can get a little bit of a better idea of how saturated you're making your color when you mix it up like this. Still, though, you've got that beading problem. You see how it beads up on the tray, and it's a little bit hard to judge what the thickness of the paint is. I think that's kind of a thinner medium. It feels that way to the brush. And I'm right, it's a little thinner. It's not quite as thick as the other mixture was. But metal serves its purpose. If this is what you have when you're traveling, and it's a good enough surface, you can wipe it down if you need more space. You've got these little inserts that you can take out, of course, and use more space down there. But overall, it's metal, and it does have a little bit of a drawback. It's not quite as unresponsive as the plastic. See a little more how thick the paint is by pushing it kind of to an empty area, but it's still giving you that beading quality. So let's take a look at the next palette that I have. This is one I've had for a very, very, very long time, since my student days. It is a butcher's tray, and it's just an enamel tray. This is Quality Flintstone, I guess that's the brand. It was a 16-inch. It's just an enamel tray, and what I used this for originally was I had some Caran d'Ache watercolor crayons, and rather than draw right on the painting itself, I would color or put the color right here, and then I would take the brush to wet it and get the thickness that I wanted, or the thinness that I wanted, the viscosity of the paint. But let's take a look and see what we get out of this one. Now, I'm going to just use a blue here. I'm just going to use a random blue and get some of that wet here. I should actually have wet that a little bit earlier so we could see. But if I get that and move it over here, the butcher's tray, see how it does not bead up? It has that nice look. As far as I stretch it, it's not beading up. And you can really see the difference there between that and this right here. You can see the green, how you can't really see the thickness so much. It still beads up. This does not bead up. And you see what I'm talking about. Even if you wet it a little bit and you put it in a wet mixture, you can still pull that aside and see how thin that mixture is. So it's pretty true on paper as to what you have there. It's going to be pretty true. See that? You're not getting a big difference. You can judge your colors and your viscosity, the thickness of the paint, much better on a surface like this. And then, of course, see, I love that. I just love that. Now, don't think any of these paints are going to go to waste. I am going to save them, let them dry, and use them on a project. Or maybe I'll do a little project after this filming. Lastly, I do have a ceramic palette that I got from Amazon, and this one was recommended to me. Not this particular one, but the fact that it's ceramic. I've had so many people tell me such good things about ceramic, and I have a feeling that it's going to perform just like the butcher's tray. Now, This one I got off of Amazon, but you can get them in many different places. Jackson's has them. I know, I think Jerry's and Blick's should have them as well. So let's try the same paint test with this one and see what the big deal is about ceramic. So see, right away, you can see it doesn't bead up. It spreads out evenly, and if you add a little water to it, you can still see how it's not really beating up that much. It is a little bit. I kind of like the butcher's tray a little better, but you're still getting a good idea of the viscosity of the paint. You can tell this is a little bit watery. You can see that spot right there where it's like watery, and you can judge how it's going to look on your paper. This is a little thicker portion, so if I go like that and I look at that and I'm right on, see, it is thicker. It's darker, it's more saturated. So you can see how the difference is evident depending on the surface that you're using to mix your paints. It's very important. I am really happy with this palette from Amazon. It's a nice little size, really. It's got enough wells. You've got 2, 4, 6, 8 wells on this, and you've got enough for mixing. If you want to rinse them off, they rinse off clean. It's perfect. It's really perfect for what I need to do with my painting. It's small enough that I can keep it on the table, but it's not so, so small that I don't have enough room to work. I really like that. The metal's great for traveling, again, but I really like the ceramic. The butcher's tray is a very nice option too. If you can get a hold of these. I don't think they come very small. They really are butcher's trays for the old-fashioned butchers that used to cut their meats and fish and put them on trays and put them in the display case. This is what they used. So they really don't come very much smaller. I'd like to see this in a size kind of like the palette here, but for what I need it for, I can put it on the table. I have enough space. It's great. Well, I hope you like this demonstration of the different palettes and how they perform. It certainly has been fun to do, and I definitely see the difference in the different materials. I do thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. See you next time.